With a whirlwind international break for Canada football, the MLS is back and all the Canadian teams are back in action this weekend. I'm joined with Mikey Singh, our Toronto FC and MLS expert, and the big news coming out of MLS is their partnership with Apple, which will be starting in 2023. What is your take on all of this?
It's a massive deal, first of all. I think MLS had this sort of in the works for a very long time. They made it so that all of their local deals, all of the broadcast deals with everyone else all ended at the end of 2022. Now they're going to be paid reportedly to at least $250 million a year from Apple for the next 10 years. It's transformational because we've never seen a deal like this before. A deal where the rights exclusively go to a streaming service. MLS threw out some numbers. About 80% of their audience already watches the games through streaming services. Their audiences are younger. So they're trying to get ahead. But I think the biggest aspect of the deal is it has to be the financial value. You can't look past the $250 million a year.
And what do you think the biggest factor is? Like, what is Apple bringing to MLS with this partnership? What's the biggest change we're going to see?
Yeah, of course, the first one's accessibility. I mean, everything's now going digital. You're going to have to watch your games through streaming services. It's yet to be seen whether or not local broadcasts will be able to sub-license from Apple, simulcast the games, streaming them as well as from Apple. But I guess the biggest thing is Apple's going to bring a whole new side of production. They're going to put on their own production. They're going to do the games from a centralized location. It's going to be game-changing, I think, in terms of the way that we now watch games, the way we now view games. They do it for MLB. Friday nights, they do their own production and everything, own broadcast teams. And in my opinion, it looks fantastic.
Right.
So I want to see where this goes. Does this open a new door for storytelling as well? Will they have greater access than perhaps we've seen in the past? So I think it's exciting. It's going to be new. There's going to be some people who don't like it, but I think once it starts, there's going to be a lot of people who do.
And do you also expect that this is going to bring a lot more attention to MLS? Because, a lot of the European leagues look down on MLS. It's not as competitive, and it isn't, to be fair. But will this be able to, not only commercialize MLS, but bring more value to the league as well?
That's a good question. I think that's their goal. Apple, the brand itself. I mean, you have a Mac, I have an iPhone. We know what Apple means in terms of everything in this world, it seems like, especially from a technology standpoint. So just latching its name onto a brand like Apple, being the first really to do it in this sort of way, I think perhaps there is opportunity to grow the game globally. It just might take some time.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting. It's huge for the MLS. So, I guess we'll see what happens in the next couple months. But let's talk about the Canadian teams. They're all back this weekend after the international break. TFC up first, talk about them. They won against Chicago before the break, 3-2. But they're 12th in the Eastern Conference, still looking, all over the place. This weekend, they're back, taking on New York Red Bull, a very tough team. They're up in 4th. How are you feeling going into this game?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the international break actually came at a pretty good time for TFC. Couple reasons. One, heading into that break, they were 3 games unbeaten. They strung together victories, actually, when you look back against Chicago Fire and also the Canadian Championship game against York and then the late draw at DC United. So 3 games unbeaten. And then you had the Canadian Championship final, the 2020 Canadian Championship final, which they ended up winning, right? It wasn't in the prettiest of fashions, but they got it over the line. They got the job done. So heading into this game, they're 4 games unbeaten. They're kind of recharged out of their international break. Injuries are racking up with this team. They've kind of got some bodies back into the mix. Osorio and Mavinga are back training, which is a good sign for this team because we know how important those guys are. So I am feeling a little bit better about this team overall, but that being said, going to Red Bull Arena is always a disaster for Toronto FC. So on that note, not feeling too great about this upcoming fixture.
Right. And TFC have to take on Montreal next week, who are doing a lot better than TFC. In fact, they're the best Canadian team right now. How are you, looking at them versus TFC and what they've been doing this season? Because they've been much stronger overall.
Yeah, no, they have a really good team, first of all. I think Wilfred Nancy's approach is finally starting to set into the squad after this is his second year right now with Montreal. And they've taken a different philosophy overall. They're going away from getting that big name designated player that we've seen in the past. And they're really investing in some domestic products that have come through. You think, look at their back line. It's Alistair Johnson, Kamal Miller. We know how good those guys have been for the men's national team, and we're seeing it kind of pay dividends right now with Montreal. And like I said, there's so much depth on that team that you have to like. They're dangerous, but that being said, I do caution Montreal supporters, let's say, because I do believe there is a part of this team that's overperforming slightly. Third in the East right now, but if you look at their goal differential, 28 goals scored, 26 conceded. I believe that's maybe the most out of any team sort of in that region. They're one of the I guess worst defensive teams in Major League Soccer. So that could tend to catch up with you. So this next upcoming stretch will be important for them, especially when you consider they have a Canadian Championship semifinal with Toronto next week.
And they take on Austin this weekend.
There you go.
And finally, Vancouver, also, not doing so well this season so far, off to a rough start. They're facing Dallas this weekend, who are a really tough team. What's their mentality going into this match?
It's to finally pick up a good result on the road. They've struggled this season on the road. I believe they're 1-7 away from BC Place this season. It's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge. Dallas is, like you said, they've surprised a lot of people. They're one of the best teams this season in Major League Soccer, and for good reason. You're starting to see guys like Jesus Ferreira step up top for Dallas, and TFC knows this firsthand. It's always tough to go in there and play in Dallas. So I think they're going to look for a result. That being said, this next upcoming stretch, like Montreal, it's going to be really tough because after this, you're looking at, like you mentioned, Dallas already away. Then you're going to play New England at home and then back away to LA, the LA Galaxy there. So yeah, it's going to be really telling these next few games for Vanni Sartini's side.
Absolutely. Lots of exciting upcoming MLS matches. Also, make sure to check out Mikey Singh's articles at theparley.com. He has some bombs coming in.